cardiovascular disease can be caused by obstructive sleep apnea, right? So if you're talking just about general sleep hygiene, there's like sleep hygiene rules. So these are rules that I talk to my patients about a lot when they're having trouble sleeping. And I'll tell you right now that sleep is very difficult. Sleep is very difficult to treat. It's just one of those things where we don't have, depending on what the sleep disorder is, if it's just kind of run-of-the-mill insomnia, I'm just a bad sleeper, there's sleep hygiene, but it's tricky, like, and it physiologically tends to get worse as you age. So your sleep hygiene rules are basically things like, you want to get into a sleep routine, right? So this would be a good thing to tell your clients, your training clients. So sleeping routines are very important. So regardless of how much sleep you get during the day, you should be trying to go to bed and wake up at around the same time every day. If you've had 3 hours of sleep or 7 hours of sleep, when that alarm clock goes off at 6 o'clock, you start your day, you get up and you get out of bed, no matter how much sleep you've had. The second rule is that you want to try to go to bed when you're actually a little bit tired, right? So trying to fall asleep at 10 o'clock when you're totally not tired is going to be a bit kind of difficult. So wait until you're tired and go to bed. Once you fall asleep, so some people have trouble falling asleep and some people have trouble staying asleep. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep, we say give yourself 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, if you're tossing and turning, you have to get out of bed, because it's the tossing and the turning and the looking at the clock that makes you more upset that you're not sleeping. So we say get up, do something, read a book, watch TV, listen to some like meditation app or something, and then your body will get tired again, fall back asleep, but don't toss and turn for more than 20 minutes. Another one is the bath, the warm bath into a cool room is ideal for sleeping. And then the other one is just the only thing in your bed should be used for is sleeping. So no working in bed, no eating in bed, stuff like that. And then no napping during the day is another big one. So try to avoid naps during the day because that'll interrupt your sleep at night. Can you hear my kids fighting outside?
I thought it was mine for a second.
No, it's definitely mine.
I'm watching Maria right now because I'm like, oh shit, she's not put on mute.
And then the other one is exercise, actually. So exercising before 4 o'clock is ideal, because if you're exercising, let's say 8 o'clock at night, you're getting that endorphin rush and it's going to make sleep more difficult. So those are like the basic sleep hygiene things. Then you have to so for example, if I have somebody who comes in and says, I'm waking up, my partner hears me, I'm snoring really loud. They say that I stop breathing when I sleep. Those are signs of sleep apnea, right? And sleep apnea is when you actually stop breathing and your oxygen levels desaturate in the middle of the night, which over a long period of time is very dangerous, right? Because you're not oxygenating your brain. And that can lead to a lot of medical issues. So for those people, we do a sleep study. They actually go and have a formal sleep study done, and it can be treated, depending on how bad it is, it's treated different ways. Like the most severe cases are treated with a CPAP machine, right? Have you seen those with the mask? Yep. And they're hooked up to their CPAP machines?
Chris, don't you have that? Sleep apnea?
I was supposed to.
I have to wake him up because he literally stops breathing at night. It's really scary.
No. That was before.
That was before. It's getting better, but it's
really scary. I had a really stressful, crazy time, and I thought I don't know what it was. It was right before my surgery, right before the kids were born, my daughter was born. It was during allergy season at the same time, and there's a bunch of other things going on. And I did my test, and I stopped breathing 27 times an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was a disaster. I wasn't sleeping. I was whatever. And then they made me go a couple months later for a re-checkup, and I was a completely different person.
Really? So
I think a lot of it had to do with stress, if that makes any sense.
Could be.
You can tell me if I'm wrong, but literally, she was hitting me, Chris, you're not breathing. Chris, you're not breathing. I was waking up ruined, just destroyed. Never get ahead. And then, about 3 months later, when they're like, hey, it's time to get your CPAP. How you feeling? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm a completely different person. But I'm attributing it to a lot of stressful factors going on. But again, I'm no professional. They said that after all said and done, I didn't need it. and I can wait another year and get retested if I want.
Yeah.
Is sleep apnea hereditary?
No, it doesn't tend to be hereditary. But that being said, there are risk factors that can contribute to it. So, for example, like sleep apnea, you can have sleep apnea if you are overweight, right? Because if you're overweight and you have a lot of tissue around your neck, you lie down and that tissue basically occludes your airway. So, but let's say you have just a family where you've got like, the other thing that can cause sleep apnea is a very small oropharynx. So if you open up your mouth and you look at the back, if you have like a small opening rather than a big opening, or you have a really large neck, like those kinds of things could be hereditary and then possibly cause the sleep apnea. But as an actual disorder, no, it's not like my father had it, so I'm likely to have it. I don't think that there's really a strong familial component to that.
I got a question for you. You know how they say take melatonin to help you, with your sleep and whatnot?
Yeah.
I remember when I was in university and taking I don't know, chemistry, biology, something, and they're saying it takes, I don't remember, I don't know if they said by the time it actually takes effect where your brain can actually utilize it properly, it takes like 8 hours or 8 to 12 hours before. But when they sell melatonin pills, they're saying like take it before like right before you go to bed.
Yeah.
So I never could and the prof never understood that either. He's like, I don't know why they're doing that. So again, it's been so long I'm out of school, so I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe change, or am I just kind of fall into the just believing like into commercialized medicine, we'll say, and just taking it as convenient. You know what I mean?
So that it brings, so you're basically talking about how do you treat issues now, right? So let's say you're just talking about regular insomnia. How do you treat insomnia? So there's a couple ways you can treat it. The first one we always talk about, which is the most conservative, right, is your sleep hygiene, which we went through. The second one is melatonin. So melatonin has been studied, and the most recent stuff that I know regarding melatonin is that really the biggest role it has is actually helping sleep when you are crossing time zones. That's actually the biggest help for that's where we see the most robust response for melatonin, as opposed to just using it every night to help you sleep. We find that it's not as helpful for that particular use. That being said, if I have a patient who comes in and they're like at their wit's end, but they don't want to try something stronger than that, and I'll get to that in a second, because treating sleep with sedatives can also be very tricky. But let's say they just want to try melatonin. I mean, by all means, it's likely not going to hurt as long as they're not on anything else that it would interact with. And the other thing is that a lot of people will underdose melatonin, right? So they'll be taking 3 milligrams at night, when really you can go up to as high as 9. So if I have a patient who's been on 3 milligrams for 6 months, I'll say bump it up to 9. You have to take it around the same time where your body produces it normally, which is typically before bed, right? So like at dusk or after that, because it's released according to your circadian rhythm. So you have to take it at around the same time, and you have to be dosing it correctly. The other thing that sometimes, there's Vanessa. Yes, I use it only when changing time zones and having a hard time sleeping. Yeah, and that's like, in terms of the evidence behind it, that's when it seems to be the most effective. Aside from that, then there's sedatives, right? For people who are having chronic insomnia, they've tried the sleep hygiene, they just can't, then yes, we can use sedatives. They have to be used very cautiously, because they are addictive. And over time, your body needs more and more and more. So I use them very selectively, and in very controlled sort of aliquots, right? Like I'll only give out a certain amount of tablets. They have to last that patient a certain amount of time before I'll renew them.
What's your opinion?
Old people. What's that?
What's your opinion? I've heard on different podcasts, different speakers, different, we'll say chemists talk about how they say the definition of sleep is, being in a steady state for a certain period of time. And again, this is just what they're saying. I actually haven't Googled, scholared any definitions on any of this. But just because you haven't moved for 8 hours doesn't actually mean your body's recovering. So a lot of times they say kind of the same thing as where, people say they like to smoke weed or marijuana to go to bed, but just because you're sleeping doesn't mean your body's actually recovering. And they say They've said that taking, I guess, sedatives or sleeping pills or whatever, that yeah, you're sleeping, but you're not actually recovering. So you'll wake up still feeling like shit.
Yeah, so a lot of sedatives have that effect, right? Where you wake up feeling really groggy, and that's why a lot of people don't like them. So there's short acting and then there's longer acting ones, but you're right. And I'm not a sleep specialist, so I don't, without like looking up the cycles of sleep, I can't recall like how long you're supposed to be in REM sleep and that sort of like all the different cycles you go through. But there is like, there are stages of sleep that you're supposed to be in for a certain amount of time. And if you're not in those stages for appropriate amounts of time, you can be asleep, meaning your eyes are closed and you're lying in bed, but you're not actually in the right stage of sleep for recovery. And actually the opposite is true. So a lot of people will come in and they'll say, I'm not sleeping at all. Like I don't ever sleep. When they actually have studies done, or sometimes there's even apps on your phone that you can download, and you can even like put them under your pillow and they'll track your sleep. They actually are sleeping, but they're waking up unrefreshed. So some people who say like, I'm not sleeping, I'm like sleeping 4 hours a night. They're not. They're actually sleeping longer than that. They just don't feel right. And then you have to look at other things that could be causing them to feel kind of crappy, right? But yeah, it's true. Like you have to be hitting the cycles of sleep appropriately and for the right amount of time.
Again, going forward with that talk, like if you think, like say they're sleeping, but they're not actually getting into the proper sleep, one taking pills. Do you guys sometimes, again, I'm just asking because I'm just curious, would you guys prescribe them to do that? Like to take it, say you know that it doesn't make a difference, but it's a tool to get their body used to being in a steady state and getting them into a habit where their body's like, okay, I'm actually used to sleeping for 8 hours or, for a prolonged period of time?
Would I use a sedative, you mean, to do that, Chris? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like instead of, like would you look at it, be like, you know what, maybe I know they're not necessarily going to recover fully because they're taking this, but at least it's going to get them, their body and their mind into a routine of being like, of going to sleep at a certain time and knowing they can fall asleep, and just knowing that you're going to fall asleep at like, say like 10 o'clock and not be rolling around. It becomes almost habitual when you're so eventually stop the pills or.
No, so truthfully, no. I would do sleep hygiene for that more than I would. Like I wouldn't use a sedative to try and get them into a pattern. I wouldn't do it that way. I would prescribe or suggest melatonin for that. I would suggest sleep hygiene for that. But just to get them into like a habit of getting into a sleep pattern, I wouldn't use a sedative for that particular reason, unless they were really struggling and they weren't getting sleep. Then I would give it to them for relief, right? Just to say, okay, get a few nights good sleep, and then let's try and work on the sleep hygiene kind of aspect of it.
What's your opinion on Pete? Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
So it was kind of like a follow-up on that a little bit. I don't know if you've seen, I don't know if it was like a single study or multiple studies, but it basically showed, I think what the idea was, they put people in a room for like 12 hours with like nothing to do. Like it was a dark room. So they had like, you basically like for like a couple weeks till you like maxed out on how much sleep your body actually required. And then they like weaned them off it and went back to 6 hours of sleep a night or something like that. And for the first day, they're like, how do you feel? And they tested them and they like cognitively, physically, and they're like, how do you feel? And they're like, oh, I feel like shit. Day 2, they're like, I feel like shit. They're still performing bad. And then by day 3 or day 4, they're like, no, I actually feel really good. And I'm like, I know that I'm back to where I should be, but all their tests still show that they like were not performing at the level they were at, pretty much showing that like after a certain amount, like a really short period of time, like 3 or 4 days, you think you're getting enough sleep, but you're like definitively not. And from what I've understood, like this isn't even like a very interesting topic, like kind of everyone in the sleep world agrees on it. My question is kind of like, I'm not the greatest at explaining this to people and not sounding like an asshole, where it's like, no, I understand that you think that you're doing the right thing, but like you're wrong and you need to sleep more. Like you're probably much better at that. I'm just curious how you go about that, knowing that like people need, like, what is it, 1% of the population needs less than 7.5 hours or something?
Yeah, like adults should be getting about 7 hours of sleep. Like the last time I got 7 hours of sleep, I can't even remember. So most of us just get used to functioning on less, right? Are we functioning ideally? No, for sure. But it's, it's the best you can do. But yeah, like adults definitely, I think the recommended amount of hours is about 7 hours of sleep. Obviously teenagers need a lot more than that. You know, but yeah, I can see how you just kind of, you know, think of like, yeah, even like new parents, right? New parents so totally become, Steve's like, yes, you get used to working on 4 hours of sleep, right? It's like you get that first 4 hour stretch. I'll never forget with my kids, when I got that first 4 hour stretch, I felt like I slept 12 hours, right? Because it's just what you get used to. But ideally, yeah, 7 hours is where you should be at, ideally.
So how do you explain, like, do you have ways of using to explain to people? Because I'm not so much concerned about like Steve, where Steve's just like, yeah, I know, like I should be sleeping more, but I can't. There's so many people I talk to at the gym that are like, I only need 5 hours of sleep. I only need 5.5 hours of sleep. Like those people are the ones that I have much, like you can't tell a new parent to sleep more, because it's just like, that's not like, I could be like, work out for 4 hours a day and go for hikes. Like it's not realistic.
Yeah.
But there's other people that clearly could do it, but don't think they need to.
Got it. Yeah. I think I've become a little better at not sugarcoating stuff anymore. So you probably have the conversation about.
It's probably not my problem.
Yeah, no, I know. I've gotten better at it, but no, I think it's literally like, it's a matter of saying like, look, do you want to perform here? Do you want to be at your best? Because if you do, I'm telling you right now, this is what I'm telling you to do. You know, you can do it or not, but that's just going to show up in your performance. Like, it's the same conversation I have with people who, you know, are tackling obesity. Like, okay, I understand it's difficult. I get it. It's an addiction. But you have to make that decision. Do you want to get better? Do you want to see a difference? If you do what I'm telling you. If you don't, you know, as is. I think that's all you can say. It's all you can do, right? It's frustrating. Sometimes you want to, you know, it's almost like you want to say to them, I can't be home with you to make sure you're doing what I'm telling you to do, right? So I think you just have to tell them, and then it's up to them.
Yeah. I find it's a weird irony where, like, as much as, like, in the nutrition world, like, there's so much confusion about what's right. Like, you could have, like Joe Rogan lost, like, 20 pounds on a, like, all meat diet. Like, it's just, like, we don't know what's going on completely. We have a pretty good idea, but everyone intuitively knows that, like, they should be eating better. And yet we have, like, really, really good idea of how to sleep. And people are like, no, I'm good. Like, it's just this weird, hilarious irony where, like, the one that we know really well, people accept and, like, yeah, I should be eating better. And you never have to fight with someone over it. They're never like, no, trust me. Like, the cake I have every day is good for you. I was like, I know, I just got to do better. And then sleep, they'll be like, I'm fine. Like, you're wrong. I don't need more sleep. And, like, it's just, I find it kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
I think it's more just awareness. Maybe, like, I guess just by us talking about this is just showing that people are more aware. Just talking about, like, if it's up to us, like, you know, us trainers can be the ones starting, and when they go see their doctors, they can continue it, of talking about their sleep, so they'll focus on their sleep more as much as they think about the nutrition, because most people think about the nutrition and are worried about eating carbs a lot more than getting 8 hours sleep, right? And just because that's all we see all the time, it's in our brains, and you know, I think it just comes.
What you can tell them is that sleep now is a lot more studied than it ever has been in the history of sleep, right? Like, we actually have scientific data now showing that you need sleep. So you can always explain it to your clients that way. Look, you know, if you think you're getting enough sleep, you know, reference some good, you know, websites or articles or you know, I don't know any off the top of my head, but I'm sure they're easy enough to find, where you can actually say, like, this is your example right here. It's the proof is in the pudding, right? We now have evidence and data to back this up. It's not just, I'm telling you because I think it's right. I'm telling you because I know it is. I
think one of my favorite ones is that I said to you, Doriana, a couple of years ago, I think, on a Joe Rogan podcast. And, like, I forget what he was. I don't know if he was a neurologist or something. And I'm guaranteed Rob would listen to it too. Like, it was one of the best ones, because you don't have to have some scholarly article where people are like, okay, you want me to read? And then you're going to read in a language I don't understand. You listen to Joe Rogan podcast. So they're talking in, like, layman's terms, and gave so many different examples that you're like, oh shit. Even Joe Rogan, like, he had his, like, you hear him on other podcasts, you know, smoking weed before you go to bed and this and that. Like, the guy scientifically proved to him in a way that everyone can understand, including Joe Rogan. And he was probably like you can hear in his tone, like, oh, I'm a fucking idiot. I was wrong. My bro science isn't backing this shit up. You know what I mean? Like, that
was an amazing podcast. I remember in that. I remember in that podcast, there was a woman who was doing, I can't remember what it was called, but she had done this crazy marathon. It was like 24 hours or something. And she had slept like a total of 1 hour during the whole thing. And she actually started to hallucinate. She was seeing like bunnies jumping. yeah, and it was all from lack of sleep. And we actually know that, like, look at conditions like bipolar disorder, right? In bipolar disorder, sleep is part of the treatment, because if we can't get a person who's manic to sleep, it perpetuates their psychosis, right? So part of that is sleeping.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was Matthew Walker on Joe Rogan, if anybody hasn't listened to it yet.
Highly recommend it.
great.
It was incredible, absolutely incredible. I went when I was in high school, when I was in college, or sorry, not college, university. There's a period of time, about 4 years, that I was getting tops 6 hours sleep, and I was constantly tired. So driving home, I'd be calling my friends to keep me up. I actually fell asleep, hit a car. It was really bad. Like, and then you don't realize how bad it is until you start catching up on sleep. Like, holy shit! But I can tell you the same effects of driving drunk and driving tired were the exact same. Like, seeing the same
100%.
things. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
it was really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad. Like, I've been pulled over, falling asleep.
How did you know what driving drunk felt like?
I was stupid when
La
I
la
was young.
la 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 la.
When I was young, I was stupid.
Basil's not on, right?
Well, I would never do that again. Like, I can't even, but again, you're dumb and ignorant. But when I was young, that's how it is. But I would never take that risk now. But driving tired, same, like, honest to God, same effects, seeing the same weird things, like being delayed, being everything. It's
Absolutely.
it's
So
real. It is
yeah,
real.
it is real.
Get
I
it.
physically cannot drive anywhere longer than an hour at a time, because I know I'll fall asleep. Like, it's that bad. Like, I am limited to how long I can drive based on the fact that I'm going to get tired and fall asleep. I don't know why the car does that to me, but you absolutely, it's totally like being impaired. Your reaction time is slower. You're not alert. It's crazy. And it's all, sleep related. The other thing too to mention is, I guess, that if you are having sleep trouble, right, we also have to make sure that we've ruled out any physiological cause. So things like hyperthyroidism, right? Is your thyroid malfunctioning and that's affecting your sleep? Are you having too much caffeine? And other drug use, obviously, as well. Those are like the two big ones that come to mind when it comes to sleep or fatigue.
So
Doriana,
sorry, go ahead. My bad.
I have a question. There's like a big, huge talk now about using like these, like an ice cold bath, before you go to sleep. And like, it's just like very trending right now. And then I know you said that, like, take a nice hot shower and then make sure the room temperature is a little bit colder. I do know for myself, when, our room temperature is a bit colder, I sleep very well. And I'm not the greatest sleeper, but like, is there anything in this like cold bath that you've had any experience with that does anything to our body that makes us, like, my shower is like scorching hot. I love having really hot showers. So maybe that's why I'm not sleeping. But is there anything, I can't go into a shower and have it cold, but is there anything that you find that helps with that, or is it just a trend that's going on?
Yeah, no, I think for sleep, it's exactly what you said about the hot shower. It's actually the opposite, right? For sleep, we don't want cold showers. It's a hot shower. And the physiologic reason behind that is that when you're hot, your blood vessels open up, right? They dilate. And then what happens is you come out of the shower with those big blood vessels, you come into a cold room and they shrink. And there's something about that. I don't know the physiologic mechanism, but there's something about that process that shows that is what helps you sleep better. So it's the transition from a warm shower to a cool room, as opposed to the waking up part, which is what Rob was talking about the other day, and that's taking the cold shower and the cold bath. So for sleep, it's the opposite. And yeah, I don't know down to like the molecular level why that works, but it is shown to help.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I think on that is like, I mean, for the cold showers, it's like short-term goals. Like, I feel for most people, it's like, if you shower at night every time and you want to try it, like 4 or 5 days of like going through the cold showers is not going to be so much to mess up your sleep cycle.
Yeah.
Although I'll admit, the first time I had a cold shower was at night, and I literally didn't sleep at all that night, but I was so rattled from the cold shower.
Yeah.
Or maybe the cold shower is for the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
in the
That's
morning.
like to be,
Yeah.
to,
That would make more sense. Yeah.
The Tony Robbins cold plunge.
Yeah. The other thing with the with caffeine, where is like the cutoff? Because I think like caffeine's very similar actually to the people that like say they only need 4 hours of sleep. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who are like, no, I can have caffeine at like 7 o'clock at night and not sleep. And it's like, I'm trying to like a lot of times I have conversations like that's a terrible thing. Like that's not something to brag about. That's like saying like I can eat a bunch of bag of chips all the time. Like it's just it seems like a really bad thing that people brag about and like having this thing where like, oh, I can have coffee and not fall asleep. Like what is the cutoff time for most people?
For sure by 4 o'clock. Like after 4 o'clock, if you're having sleep issues, after 3 to 4 o'clock, you shouldn't be having caffeine.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't have coffee. You can have decaf, but definitely no, not caffeine. Right?
You hear that, Maria?
And think about our young people, right? Like
horrible.
them, it's not so much the coffee, it's the Red Bulls and all the stimulant drinks, right? It's the same kind of thing, right? So if you're training like a younger person, that would be the equivalent, right? They might not be drinking coffee, but they're downing 3-4 Red Bulls a day to keep them up or whatever.
So put vodka in it to cancel it out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was my go-to.
Yes.
Back to where you started.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I had one more thing, but it's away from sleep if you want to talk about. It was kind of more like we were talking about last week with anxiety and depression and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like, I don't think it's going to be that bad during this period because what I've seen a lot of is, especially for like younger people, like the reason why social media is so bad is it's like this, like the FOMO, like fear of missing out and like real desire to like have what other people have. I think that like I have a theory that over this period, it's not going to be that bad because everyone's going through it. It's not like you're stuck at home alone while everyone else is doing everything. Like and like I kind of like went through the opposite where it's like, one, I'm at home now and like literally Instagram is so different now versus when I was at home alone. Like when I was at home alone, I'm watching people go out and party and like work out at gyms and hang out with their friends and stuff. And that's a very different experience to now where everyone's like talking about how they're at home alone and stuff. So I personally think it's going to lead to a lot less depression and anxiety in young people than maybe it's predicted because being alone. Do you think like that's true or do you think that's completely off or what?
Actually, you know what? I never thought about it that way, but it's totally true, right? Like even just the chats that I have, it's always like, oh, you know, we're FaceTiming each other and stuff like that because we're all home doing nothing. So you don't really feel bad, right? Like not like, oh, I'm not going out tonight because whatever, or, and I know yesterday I was watching, I don't know, some news channel and she must've been like a child psychologist or something, but she was saying how now because, you know, kids, up until now we've been like, you know, get off your device. Now it's the opposite. We want them on their devices because it's the way that they are maintaining their sanity and their friendships. So it's like, okay, now you know, go outside for an hour. That's your break because it's kind of vital for them right now to stay connected. So, I mean, we've kind of done like a total flip over, but yeah, I think it has totally changed, you know, the way, you don't feel alone, right? I think it's this feeling like you're not alone in this. Everybody's kind of suffering together.
Yeah.
So can I just to add to that too, it's interesting that you say that, Rob, because right now I'm doing my master's in counseling psychology and I'm set to do my practicum, so I have my placement practicum, whatever, in September. And the university sent an email out saying that we should actually anticipate that we're going to have an increase of cases of anxiety, depression, particularly OCD with like people cleaning and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the university sent that to the students to say, heads up, you're probably going to get an increased caseload for X, Y, and Z, and to let your supervisor know if you have like, if that's an issue for you. So saying like, if it's something that bothers me, that I need to let my supervisor know. So they anticipate that it's going to get, from a mental health perspective, a lot worse with anxiety, depression. I know that's something that, like, for example, like my sister who has anxiety, and recently since being home because she goes to Guelph and they canceled everything, they sent everyone home, they closed the university, everything. And that's something that she struggles with too, is that like isolation of being away from people and stuff like that. And like, there's something to be said, I think, about like FaceTime, not like the app or whatever, but like having an actual conversation with someone face to face versus over a screen and what that gives you. So the lack of that, I think they're projecting for it to get a lot worse for young people, particularly, not so much for like, I guess, I don't know, people who are like in their teens and early 20s and whatever.
Yeah. I think like I'm probably like the biggest person that's gonna get hit by it. Like I always tell people like maybe Chris is the other person, but like I am the most extroverted person like I know. But it's like I constantly need to be around people. And I do feel like I was joking around, like I'm feeling certain anxieties that I'm pretty sure like the super introverted people feel in society all the time, where it's like I just need to be around people. But I think it's like kind of how like basically like in the first world over the last 50 years, like everyone's life has gotten better. Like definitively everyone's life has gotten better, but it's like the disparity has gotten bigger. And I think like that's shown like to lead to a lot more depression, even though everyone's life is way better than it was 50 years ago. It's because you can see everyone else is even better. So it's kind of like if you make 90 grand a year, but you hang around with a bunch of people that make 200 grand a year, you're probably more anxious than someone who makes 70 grand a year, but hangs out with a bunch of people that make 50 grand a year. Like it's not leading to a lot of productivity, but you're more satisfied with who you are. And it's like, if you're keeping up with your community, like you're doing really well. So I just kind of think on like a big macro level, like no one feels like they're really falling behind right now. And no one's like super stressed about it, because it's like, honestly, like you have like Doriana being like, yeah, like be on Instagram and play video games and you're saving the world right now. So you just feel like you're not losing ground. And I just, from before, like I felt like I was losing so much ground in the world when I was stuck by myself, that this is just, it's a very different feeling. And I think that may trickle down sort of the same way 2008, everyone thought like was going to lead to way worse problems than it actually did. Like people were way more concerned about the crisis than the results ended up happening when they look back on it a couple of years later.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you have to, you know, look to positive stuff, it's like hopefully at the end of this we'll actually, you know, have learned how to not take stuff for granted, how to not take relationships for granted, how to stay connected, right? Reach out to people that you don't talk to all the time. We'll see.
I wanna redo on my mat leave. This is bullshit. This is not what I signed up for.
Oh, Jordy.
Sucks.
See, I'm
Everybody's
so
getting
happy
mat
right now
leave right
'cause I
now.
get to-
Everyone's getting mat leave. I'm getting gypped.
Just have more babies. That's it. That's all.
No, thank you. Not right now. No.
What else are you gonna do with your time at home? Come on.
Just don't call her like Iris with like a US.
What?
What?
The next generation of babies are going to be called like Rona virus.
Oh, now I get
Someone
it.
actually, okay, so this is
Now I get
totally
it.
aside, but I saw someone in the States, you can't really see, they had twins. They called one COVID and the other coronavirus.
No.
Actually.
That's amazing.
Definitely
They're
Florida.
from the South. They're
They're from
obviously
Florida.
from like Florida.
Definitely.
Obviously. So.
All right, guys.
All right.
All done?
Yeah, I think we're good. We got like just over half an hour until the next class. So
Awesome.
thank you very much.
I
That was a
love
lot
your
of fun.
talk, Doriana.
Thanks, guys. Feel free
I
to
love
ask
seeing your
questions.
faces, everybody.
I know. I feel happy to just see people these days. And I am catching up on sleep, so there you go. There's a bonus.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mhm.
I was up until last night. We watched too many episodes of Mad Men.
Ah.
She's Maria's like, no, one more.
And we just started Mad Men. It's pretty good.
I can't believe the women.
Shit. Never
The
watched.
husbands come home, dinner's made. The
Shut up.
wife is like
Shut
massaging the husband.
Wow.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Anyways, that's a whole other story.
Not
We can talk about
reality,
that another
Chris.
day.
And they were less depressed than current women.
Not me, honey.
They were happier than that women are now on average.
It's hilarious. They're like, oh, my husband likes to come home and go upstairs and keep to himself, not talk for half an hour before he comes down. And
You married the wrong woman, honey.
Go smoke a cigarette. Have some scotch.
Maria, get his
That's awesome.
newspaper ready with his slippers.
See?
Like the women were so ridiculous. I can't.
Oh my God, you guys come so far. All right, guys, I'm gonna go.
Hey Chris.
Yeah. What's up?
Are you doing the 8 kilometers today?
I'm gonna do it right now.
No, he's
25
not.
or 50?
25 or 50 push-ups. It was changed to 25, no?
I'm doing 50.
Only
I didn't
for
realize.
people who are
There's
wusses.
zero chance Chris is doing this.
Are you kidding?
What
No,
is
I'm
it?
not even kidding. I'm doing it for two reasons. Number one, I really don't want to do it. Number two, I'm doing it to help, like, to support Nydia because she wanted to do this, and I think it's good because I don't want to do this. I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? And I committed to someone. If I said I'm gonna do something, I have to do it, right? And I've been telling you guys and inviting the members to do it. So how can I not do it?
No, the reason I asked is because she revised it from 50 to 25 for everybody. So I wasn't sure if it was just her or for everybody.
I think it's for people to participate because, again, you see this workout is just pure mental grit, and that's kind of my jam anyway. So I like being tested and testing myself. So I'm gonna do it the proper way.
I thought it was like every 5 minutes on a clock.
That's what I thought at first.
I was
I'm
like,
like,
it's impossible. Like, no one's
Yeah.
going to finish this because it's going to take 3 minutes.
Yeah.
To get through when you're tired, and then you're just never going to get done. You're going to have to run 5 miles in 1 minute increments.
You just got to add
That's what I
5.
thought too.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just add 5 minutes. You always do 5 minutes of running.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Godspeed. That's all I can say, man.
I'll stick to 50, Chris. I'll stick to 50.
All right.
I'll let you know how it is. I'm literally gonna do it. I'm gonna do it as soon as I get off the phone now.
Frankie says hi, Doriana.
Hi, Frankie.
Hey guys.
Look at Frankie. Hi, Frankie.
Oh my God, he's
Yeah.
scratching me. Okay, down you go.
1 hour, Chris. 1 hour.
That's the goal. That's the goal. I'll keep you posted. I'm literally gonna do it now. Hopefully, I'll be done just after 12 o'clock. Okay.
True form?
He's gone down.
I got the
Outside.
True Form or the Assault Fitness. No, not outside. Are you kidding me?
You want to see?
True Form or the Assault Fitness, Assault Bike. I don't know which one I'm gonna try.
Oh my God, he's so cute.
That's gross.
Yes, I'm gonna do it now.
Outside, man. You have to do outside.
Yeah, I think that's scaling. Like, if it wasn't like
Um,
6.8 miles, if you translated it.
That's fine, but I'm gonna do it inside. All right, guys, I'm gonna go. But again, thank you very much, Doriana. You're awesome. That was week 3, and honestly, I'm gonna ride with this. I'm gonna try to keep on going and keep on getting questions because again, wasn't sure what we are gonna talk about, but when we talked on Rob's talk and we talked about the sleep, I'm like, you know what? Without sleep, we don't have sanity, and it doesn't matter. Like, we're gonna be more prone to everything, more prone to the disease and everything. So like, it's something that's so simple, but we don't put enough effort into it. And I think, you know, this is a great talk, and you know, it's something that hopefully will spark within our community and realize that, you know what, we got to get our shit together and do best practices for sleep, because we know at the end of the day, if we want to recover and get stronger, it's sleep that's what gets us better, right?
Yep.
Quick thing about sleep. I'm on this like mom group or whatever of like women that had January babies, and this one woman was saying she's only like her baby only sleeps or wakes up every hour, every 2 hours, and it's been like this since the baby's been born in January. She's so sleep deprived. She's hallucinating. She's like experiencing like psychosis and like all this, like, no pun intended, but all this crazy shit because she's so sleep deprived. And like she had to go, she wants to go get a prescription for her baby because her baby just won't sleep.
Yeah.
And it's affecting her that much. Like, it's crazy that it can take that toll on you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Scary, and it's true.
It honestly reminds me of Cristiano. Like, he was a colicky baby for 1 year straight, and I
Year and a
literally
half,
would cry
year and a half, he
every
didn't sleep.
night. Like, I want to, like, every night. I know Steve remembers.
It was there.
It was like, yeah, you hallucinate. And then it's like your husband comes home and you just start crying because you just like, you're not yourself.
That was Pierce. Pierce didn't sleep through the night till he was 4. And I'm not kidding.
Oh no.
Like, he would get up and I tried everything I could think of, and he just would not sleep. So eventually when he was 10 months, I just had him starting to sleep with me in bed because I was like, I was working.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm at work and I'm exhausted and I can't think, let alone problem solve. So anyway.
And Doriana, and then when he ended up sleeping, he ended up waking up having night terrors.
Oh God.
Bella had one of those last night. Scared the shit out of us.
We just cry for no
Like, you
reason.
can't even touch them. You can't even do anything. He was like the exorcist on the floor, and I just had to wait for him to like finish his episode so that like he would stop, and then he would go to bed because his eyes would be closed, but he would be like flailing on the floor. It was so scary. It was like, what is wrong with my child?
That sounds like Chris in Miami.
I was gonna say it sounds like you. I was just going to say it sounds like you.
And
Piano
you.
dreams of whistles. Sorry, she's asleep.
You know what? You know what? If we're gonna go there, Doriana, do you know if like we gotta go into the types of snores that happen?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah, let's
Piano
do that. Let's
has
do
this
that.
snore that I think he's got a clinical issue. The way he would,
What's the snore?
he would
Hey,
start
Chris, is
like
this
a
still
whistle, like a
recording?
blow up.
Yeah, it is recording.
Yeah, oh yeah. He'd go shh, and then and like it would sound like a blow up valve on like a turbo on his old
You're
Honda
so
Civic.
full of shit. I had to
And it
hit
would
you
go
in Miami.
crazy.
I had to hit you.
I hit
to
you.
fall asleep.
I pinched your nose.
You're all hitting each other?
I hit him with a
So
pillow and I
bad.
pinched his
Sounds
nose.
like a
Oh,
good time.
Steve stopped me from breathing. He actually stopped me from breathing.
I wanted to sleep so badly that I'd rather you stop breathing.
Okay, guys, I gotta go. This time
Okay.
for real. Okay, I'm
Bye,
done
guys.
making fun of each other.
Gotta go.
Bye.
Thanks
Have a
again,
good
guys.
one.
Bye, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I
Bye.
think- Do I just close it?
Yeah.
Meeting.